Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
10 minutes left. Yeah, but there's still some time. It's not the final score. We need more than the numbers we're given. Show us you live and breathe the game. You're more than a name. That's what we came for. We can bring you more than the score. Every story. Let's take this thing off of the field into the real world, away from the numbers, away from the numbers.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Still Time, the AFTN soccer show, broadcasting on CITR Radio 101.9 FM from the unceded Musqueam territory at the University of beautiful, getting cold and could be snowy, British Columbia. I'm Michael McCall,
I'm Steve Pander.
and we're bringing you a packed show that's going to solely focus on the World Cup for this episode. I mean, there's obviously some other big news stories going on in the world of football just now, especially domestically here in Canada and North America. You've got the death, or temporary death, let's say hiatus for now, of FC Edmonton. They've definitely folded for 2023. Garth Lagerwey has left Seattle for Atlanta. That's a big story in MLS. We'll chat about the domestic game when we get back talking about that, because there's still more drafts and everything that's going to be coming up in the coming weeks before Christmas. But for this episode, we want to just look at the World Cup. And it's an episode of mixed emotions. There's sadness because Canada have officially been eliminated from contention to lift the big gold trophy in a few weeks' time. It's an episode of reflection as we'll look at where the Canadian men's national team are right now and where they need to be, with a nod to looking ahead to 2026. But it's also going to be an episode of celebration, not just of Canada's first World Cup goal, where we've got a lot of pride in that, especially from the man that got it. But my big celebration, Steve, is after today, because we're recording this on Monday, the 28th of November. There's no more 2am and 5am games, and I'm so glad that those are fucking over.
Yeah, but isn't it for you like 7 a.m. just it's almost the same?
Yeah.
Like you're not a morning person.
No, but I can manage 7am.
Yeah, okay.
There's a Slave song, wow, 7am, because they didn't know that time existed. So I might dig that one out. And yes, I did drop an F-bomb there. This episode is marked explicit. We're not going to go like way over the top, but I think there's some things that just need some profanity in this episode. And also our wavelength track, which usually has things marked explicit when we have that, is going to have that as well, because it's friends of the show. See You Next Tuesday and the gang are back with a World Cup classic in the making. They released it in 2006 and it's not a classic yet, but I hope to get it to that classic status. But we're going to talk in this part Canada, Croatia, and Canada headed into the game knowing that a defeat and they would be joining Qatar in being eliminated after Morocco's stunning but well-deserved 2-0 win over Belgium earlier in the day, and we'll talk about that in part 2 and how the group looks and various issues like that. 90 minutes later, they were eliminated. Or I guess we could probably say about 115 minutes later with all the stoppage time and half-time. Disappointing, Steve, to be 2 and done. It was one of those things, heading into the tournament, we said, we hope they at least get a goal and don't go home goalless. So they've ticked that box. I was also hoping that they wouldn't be 2 and done and that the third game just wouldn't be a dead rubber, but Sadly, it is, but a lot to be proud of.
Oh, for sure. And you talked about it earlier. The first goal. I think it might probably will be the earliest goal of the World Cup in a game. I don't think anybody's going to beat that. Maybe somebody will, but I don't doubt it. But that obviously kicked off this game great, and you had about sure the Croatia tied it up at the 36th minute, but you had about at one half where you were on level terms or close to one half, 44 minutes or so. So you were close to like a half of where you thought Canada was still in it, but once that second goal was in it was basically you kind of knew at that point curtains were coming down.
Yeah, the tide had certainly turned, and it was just like a wave of Croatia pressure. What I would say is we've seen four halves of football, and Canada have done very well in three of them.
Yeah,
That second half could have got out of hand, partly because they had to open up and go for it.
Yeah.
But I think it showed the gulf of quality. But 3 out of 4 ain't bad, just to kind of paraphrase Meatloaf. And yeah, a lot to be proud of. We'll get into some of the post-game reaction in the next part. In this part, we want to kind of look at the game because although there's a lot to be proud of, I think there's a lot to question as well. The tactics, maybe not taking a T-bot off at halftime, substitutions, team shape, general approach. First thing I want to look at... Well,
off the pitch stuff.
Yeah. First thing I wanted to look at is an off-the-pitch thing. Now, this has pissed me off because of the reaction that it's had in some quarters, and I'll explain why. So I'm talking about John Herdman's comments after that loss to Belgium. Heat of the moment, he's full of passion after a great performance against Belgium. He's asked what he said to his squad afterwards, and he replied that he was proud of them and that they're going to go and fuck up Croatia.
Yeah.
I don't see anything wrong with him saying that. I think it's been made, a big mountain was made out of a molehill. Now, I would say...
I disagree.
Well, I was going to say, I would say it might be something that would have been better kept in-house.
Yeah, for sure.
So why do you disagree? Do you think it was a bigger thing?
I think it motivated Croatia. The fact that they admitted it after their win against Canada. Like if it didn't motivate them, like, oh no, that was no big deal. We were going to play, our game anyways, and we just beat them. No, they were adamant that they wanted to beat Herdman. And from what I recall again, somebody, and I didn't notice it myself. Because when Croatia scored, I kind of turned my head away from the TV. But apparently they came and they were celebrating in front of Herdman too in a couple of goals.
Oh, I never noticed that either. At that point, I was pissed off.
Somebody mentioned that not during the game, but after. Like I saw a recap. I was watching a recap or somebody recapping the games, and maybe it was on TSN or it could have been on the internet. But they mentioned that they were celebrating right in front of them. That comment is something un-Canadian like, first of all. And so that's I think a lot of people people had no issue with that, not realizing that you're saying this against a country that's been at the top of the game of the world in soccer, and they have a lot of veterans, proud veterans. Like me saying stuff like they're old, they should be in diapers. Nobody's going to be listening to me. But when you're the coach of Canada, you can't be saying that stuff. I'm sorry, and because all you're doing is poking a bear, and you don't want, even whether the bear is old or whatever, or decrepit, it's still a bear, and you're going to be poking it. So
it still has teeth and claws.
Yeah, exactly. And so you're not I just don't understand why he had to reveal that in the thing. I at that point when he said it, I cringed a little bit when he said that. I wasn't sure how it was going to be perceived, but you could tell right away when that the newspaper put that on the front page, Herman and everything. And right away you knew that this is going to affect it, and people are going to take it. This is an Eastern European country. They're not into if you shoot at them, they're not going to take it as playful banter. They're going to take it as you're going to war with them. And
I've been to Dubrovnik. I've seen the bullet holes.
Yeah, so I think this had a huge part to play in the game.
See,
I think Croatia might have still have won. I don't think they would have gone this for the jugular the way they did. And and a little bit played a part that they scored at 67 seconds in, so that really woke them up as well.
Yeah.
When the early goal happened, the combination of the two, they were once that happened, they were going all out for them.
See, I agree it pissed them off. I agree it lit a fire under them, and it definitely would have been bulletin board material. Herdman shouldn't have said it publicly.
Yeah.
But
he could say whatever he wants in the dressing room. I don't really care.
He said it because it was the heat of the moment. He was just on a high. His mind probably wasn't where it should be, and he gets put on the spot. What did you say to the team? And he said it because he was getting swept up in how the team played.
Yeah, I still think it's a lack of maturity, though, in saying that. You should know as a coach, even no matter what you say behind closed doors, you can't say it in public.
See, I was going to say maybe it's a UK thing that we don't mind it as much, but some of my friends in Scotland as well, because it was getting talked about before the game on BBC, they messaged me going, what the fuck's your coach saying about that? That's just stupid. So they thought it was stupid as well.
Yeah, I would never say that. You could say that maybe in CONCACAF or something like that or whatever. But even in CONCACAF, I feel like if you say that to like a Latin American team, no matter what it is, they're going to get angry too. I don't see anybody who if you're saying it against the team, maybe, or club, but when you say it against somebody country, I don't know. That seems like people take it seriously, and we know how passionate the fans are. What do you think the players are going to be like?
Yeah.
Right?
One of the things when he was asked about it, and in the days leading up to it, he was like, "Yeah, probably shouldn't have done it." He said, "It's my first World Cup," and it's like it's not your first World Cup.
Like it feels like
World Cups.
It feels like everybody was talking about Luca Cavallini seeing the red mist. I feel like he saw the red mist, and I think he's the one that flew. He was probably the least disciplined person, including the players, out of everybody on the team at this point.
That's maybe fair to say that, but the issue that I have with it and why I think it got blown up too much is, it will have angered. Well, it did anger Croatia, and it will have lit a fire in them, and it's clearly pissed them off. I don't think it had a huge impact on the game, because if you're saying to me Croatia needed any motivation to go into a game that they know that if they were to lose, they're pretty much on the flight home. It's like they don't need that motivation. And a goal 67 seconds in certainly lit the fire more than I think Herdman's comments.
No, but I don't think they needed motivation, but they got that extra motivation. Like you like, and it could I agree with. It could have potentially, it might have worked the other way too, where they were undisciplined. And Croatia was like, maybe that gave them too much, and it boiled over. The pot boils over, and you're spilling all over the place. You're undisciplined, and that maybe that had something to do with that first goal because they were so amped up or something like that. But I think that first goal made them realize they need to calm down. They need to play against Canada in a different way, and then maybe they reworked something. I don't know what they were. I don't really recall how. Obviously, we know what led up to the goal, but we don't know. I don't know what their tactics were and if they changed anything after that first goal.
I mean, that going into that game, well, when the draw was made, Croatia probably looked at it and thought, Canada's not a big worry in this group. But that performance against Belgium will have known that they had a game in their hands.
Yeah, that alone would have made them know. And then on top of it, you put the comment. Let's get past the comment.
I wanted to mention it just because a lot of folk blamed the defeat on that comment, but that's not why they lost the game.
I think I feel like the comment probably made it a worse defeat, and maybe not like led to, because they could have lost in the first place, right? Croatia is a very quality side. I personally think the combination of that with some formation issues, I think that's maybe what led to the loss, because they were overwhelmed in the midfield as well.
Possibly. So let's just move on from that and get into the meat and the potatoes of it. Herdman said in the build-up to the game that this game would require a different game plan to the Belgium game, a different approach. Now, to me, that hinted at several personnel changes or formation change or something like that. He referenced having all 26 players healthy and available. So again, whether that was just to kind of throw off Croatia as to, they're not going to know who's going to go on there. But in the end, I was surprised that there was just that one change, which was Hoylett making way for Larin, which I was happy with because I did want Larin to start, and I was happy because we got Larin and David together. Not that they really lit it up, but did you expect more than just the one change? I mean, we talked about it in the last show.
I did a little bit. I expected them to put extra. Like I actually thought this was if they put Larin in for David, I think that was fine. But I would have put an extra midfielder in for Hoylett. I thought that they would have maybe muddied up the midfield and forced Croatia to go wide, even though they got great wide players too. But it's their midfield as a strength. So I thought maybe at this point, maybe bring an Osario or bring Kone to start the game or something like that, and maybe have Atiba coming off the bench if they needed it or something like that. Because I think Estacio was known to have a niggling injury before the game, so I thought maybe you save Atiba and start Estacio, and it ended up being that they had to sub off Estacio, which kept Atiba on the pitch at that point. So.
Yeah, I kind of think they were forced to by that point. But I mean, we'll come to Atiba shortly because I don't think he should have still been on the pitch. But I mean, the midfield is where a lot of this game fell apart from Canada. But let's talk at the big positive.
Yeah.
Fast start again. It reaped its reward. 67 seconds in. History was made. A great ball in from Tejon Buchanan. Onto the head of Fonzie. Leapt. Headed home. Canada's very first goal in the Men's World Cup. It's a goal that's been 32 years in the making since the last appearance. Aptly coming with Fonzie's shirt number from his days here at the Whitecaps of number 67.
Yeah.
At that point you thought, oh, it's everything, it's just coming together. The stars have aligned. Yeah,
that it was a perfect setup by Buchanan. And I think it was Farhan on Twitter that's mentioned that this might be his first goal from a header. I don't know if that was confirmed.
I was thinking about
that.
I'm pretty sure I've seen him score in a Whitecaps jersey with a header, but
I don't recall. I remember the penalty kick before, but when we mentioned, did he ever take a penalty before?
Yeah.
The header, I'm not 100% sure, but great goal. You're right, great start, but like I said, the pessimist in me immediately said, was this too early of a goal? Did they want to score this early and even make it worse for, wake up Croatia so early? Maybe lull them to sleep. I think I mentioned to you, maybe lull them to sleep for the first 30 and then pour it on in the last 15 of the first half and see if they could steal something.
Yeah, see, that was the tactics you wanted. The tactics I wanted was go for the jugular early.
Yeah.
And they did, but you needed to get a second.
But they missed the jugular.
They
did.
It. And, I mean, let's be brutally honest. That was pretty much as good as it got for Canada. It was... Croatia took a little bit of time to find their feet, but once they did, it was all Croatia.
It's about... I think Canada had about the first 15 minutes or so, right? Or maybe,
but without really looking like they were going to add to the scoreline. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's the problem. But they did control it a little bit, and you're right. Around the 15... In between the 15 and 20 minute mark, that's when Croatia essentially took over. And
Kramaric, just absolutely outstanding. He had a disallowed goal in the 26th minute, which was a lovely goal.
Yeah.
And then you'd think, maybe that's going to be setting some alarm bells for Canada that need to be a bit better defensively. But Croatia then just found another gear. They put Canada to the sword. I've got to say, we looked pretty gassed in that towards the end of the first half.
I think I mentioned it to you offline, but I feel like it was more of a mental exhaustion because I feel like Croatia was leaning so much on Canada, and Canada was doing everything to avoid giving up that second goal just for the half, and to give up that goal in the 44th, minutes before you're going into the halftime. We've talked about it before. The goals just before the half and just after the half are very deflating.
Yeah,
and this was a deflating goal. I feel. It was probably a combination of physical and mental exhaustion because it was just like somebody's leaning on you, you're pushing everything to get them off, and then they just crush you at that point with that second goal.
I mean, we're not going to break down all the goals. You've all seen them. We don't want to go through it again. I'll say for the first one, Kramaric, lovely finish to the back post, but Perisic, that little ball inside to him, Canada just couldn't cope with it. And then the go-ahead goal that then Croatia went looking back after that, Marko Livaja it's a finish from the edge of the box, and whenever you're beat from the edge of the box, you always think, should the defence done better? Should the keeper have done better? But the thing is, Juranovic had danced through the Canadian team to set that up, and several players had a chance to stop and dispossess him. And I think that comes into the mental and maybe physical exhaustion aspect of it.
Yeah.
But behind at the half, they looked tired. They needed to get in and regroup. I thought, right, that's it, Atiba's off. I know it's his 100th cap. Herdman, though, said afterwards that he thought Atiba was having a great game. He wasn't. And that was the change that needed to be made. And I know that Eustáquio went off and you maybe don't want to completely revamp your midfield. But it needed more. So, I mean, Osorio came on for Larin. And for Eustáquio.
And Osorio and for Larin tells me that Herdman realized he made a mistake to begin the game with two strikers.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. But I was surprised it was Osorio. I mean, Larin coming off, because I thought Larin would stay on because they need that big body in the middle. I thought they would have taken David off instead.
He was pretty invisible. I mean,
he's been invisible almost the whole tournament. I think.
And the thing is, we know he's a good player. Herdman clearly thinks if we're needing to get a goal, Dave is the guy that's going to get it more than Larin. But we've seen in qualifying what Larin can do. Both players, we know what they can do at club level. I mean, I guess it was a 50-50 because neither of them were really lighting it up out there. But, I mean, the subs added the spark that we needed. And Osorio came close. 4 minutes after the restart. He didn't miss by much, just went past the far post. That was pretty much, though... I guess David had a shot that was tipped over just before the hour mark as well. But I mean, apart from those two chances, it was all Croatia.
Yeah, but even those chances, there wasn't very much confidence that those were going to go in. They were you felt like they weren't going to go in, and it was Borjan who kept them actually from being very embarrassed.
Yeah.
In a lot of these places, that there was a double save at one point, and then there's multiple things that Borjan, even though he left 4 goals in, it could have been a lot worse if it wasn't for him.
Yeah, and if we're talking about Milan Borjan as well, you obviously everyone would have heard the boos in the stadium and stuff that's come out since. It's been really nasty from the Croat fans, and I'm not saying this in a snowflake way. It's like there's a line of abuse that you can give players at football, and I've been right up to that line. I've probably crossed the line in the past when I've been at games, especially in Scotland. But the abuse that he was getting because he's a Serb.
Oh, yeah.
And
but there's a lot of hate between the Serbs and Croatians.
Oh, yes.
And so I totally, in a way that it's might be sensitive. I know Borjan probably expects it, and he obviously will affect him mentally, but knowing that this happens, and this is, I guarantee if a Croatian plays in a Serbian team or something like that, they're going to find abuse too. So
yeah, I don't know if you saw the story.
No, I didn't see all the story.
Someone put his phone number out.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So he was getting tons of abusive texts. Yeah. So someone circulated his phone number. Now that crosses a line to me.
Yeah, that does.
And he will have expected it, and that's the kind of thing, knowing Milan Borjan, he'd raise his game because he'd be like, I'll show you guys.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's been pretty unpleasant, and it's not been the only unpleasant aspect of this tournament with some of the teams either, but, I mean, the game had kind of gone into a little bit of a lull before Kramaric put it to bed, really, with the 3rd and the 70th, and it was a nice touch inside again and a finish. And I mean, it was nice to see 2 former Whitecaps come on. For all that I've ragged on Cavallini, it's nice that he got his World Cup moment.
For sure.
And Sam Adekugbe as well coming on. And Canada, to be fair, 2 goals down, they still pushed to the end. They couldn't grab the late consolation that would maybe even have set up a barnstorming finish. And then Croatia added that 4th on a 2-on-1 break with Meyer tucking it away. You expected that because they were going to leave space. They were going for it. I mean, just how did you come away from the game feeling?
I was, I'll be honest with you, pretty angry at Herdman initially, because of the fact that I just felt like, I'm looking, like, after reflecting a little bit, obviously, like I said, I don't feel like it's all the blame for the loss, but at the time, I was very upset.
See, this is
Because,
why I didn't want to record yesterday, because
yeah,
I was also very pissed off, but for other reasons. I was just fuming about how they played and
yeah. So, but overall, I feel like, I feel like the game could have been closer if not for the comments. But I think it clearly that Croatia did show that they are a high quality team, and the more upset I was getting was people, the people that just tuned into the World Cup and not realizing how good our side Croatia is, and then it's saying like Canada's no good, and what, their embarrassment to the country or something. Some people were commenting like that. So
well, yeah,
so
one of my
that's the
friends
thing.
in Scotland sent me a message going, Canada's shite. And I was like, did you not watch the Belgium game? But his reply to that was, yeah, Belgium's shite too.
No, but I don't care if people in Scotland are saying that, but people that are Canadian are saying that they're coming in out of the woodworks and mentioning that. So that's, but you kind of expect that for people that don't pay attention to the world
Yeah,
and don't realize how good Croatia is.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And they don't, folk have short memories and forget that they finished third at the last World Cup and they were written off at the Euros. And like the Scottish fans wrote them off as, oh, they're tired, they're old, we're going to get past them. And they gave Scotland a lesson at the
Yeah.
Euros, and they did well there. So it's, as I said, I didn't want to record this yesterday for two reasons. One, I thought, well, may as well wait till all the second lot of group games is over. But I wanted to give us time to kind of
Did you
reflect on it overnight.
you said they finished? They actually were runners up in the last World Cup.
Oh, so,
I think
so
you
they
said,
were.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
How
I
could I
just thought
forget that?
I could have sworn that I thought that, but
Yeah, no,
you
France
kind of,
beat them. Yeah,
yeah, that's right.
I
Yeah,
don't know what I'm thinking about, but yeah, you're right
yeah,
with that. But I mean, I came away just disappointed, more than angry, but a little
right.
angry. But I think part of that just goes to what John Herdman has done with this team and the belief that he's given people in this team.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
maybe we got a bit swept away with that performance against Belgium. And as my friend said, maybe Belgium's not really that
Well,
good a team.
I just asked Kevin De Bruyne. He'll
Yeah.
let you know how good
Yes,
Belgium
we'll
is.
we'll talk about that in the next part. We'll also talk about some of the other post-game reaction. We'll be back with that after this.
Hi, I'm Alfonso Davies, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
Reflected in the water when all the rainy pavements lead to you. It's over now. I know it's over. Can't let go.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part, a maudlin tune. I like to dig this one out. When I'm sad, I like to put on a sad song. And when I think of a sad song, that song from Glasgow band The Blue Nile, from their 1989 second album Hats, From a Late Night Train, doesn't get more depressing sounding than that. Like to keep the mood up here at AFTN. But we're going to talk about some of the general post-game reaction from supporters and from media and from the other camp after that Croatia-Canada game. Now, I think most Canada fans, Steve, going into the tournament, realistically didn't expect us to get out the group, and they were realistic about our chances. The Belgium performance then probably raised belief and expectation levels. So this one kind of felt maybe like a massive crash back down to earth.
I think so. Yeah, I think the everybody, obviously everybody has the rankings, and everybody mentioned the rankings where Belgium was ranked number 2. But a lot of us that know FIFA rankings know that they're not, they don't make sense, and in the fact that they're not always playing against each other. They're like beating up on other teams. Europe is known for like a lot of like minnows, especially in like group stages where the other teams are beating them up and the points are the same almost, or very close to the same. So I think that has a lot to do with it. So I think that people saying Belgium being the number 2 team and Canada, deserving a win out of that game, I think gave a lot of people false hope into this game. I still think they could have beaten Croatia, but a lot of things went against them.
But yeah, I mean, as you said in the last part, Steve, there's a lot of folk that maybe have watched the World Cup and haven't seen Canada, but this is a much different level that Canada's playing at now. It's a top quality opposition, and it's different from CONCACAF. And some of the results this World Cup have shown, and last World Cup, that CONCACAF isn't the strongest of the confederations either. But I think there was a lot of people trolling, like American and Mexican fans in particular, saying that Canada were self-proclaimed champions of CONCACAF because they topped the octagon. But I get why you get a bit of stick. If you show any arrogance or stuff like that, folk are going to throw it back at you. That's football.
Oh, yeah.
Not
that's
a
accepted.
problem with that.
But there's nothing really to say because they did win the qualifying stage.
Yeah.
Like it's not like Europe where you're playing in groups, like where you could top your group. You're not playing against everybody. In the CONCACAF one, you are playing against everybody. So for me, it's very similar to Brazil winning the South American like whole stage because they're playing against everybody.
Yeah.
So I think for me, that's the same thing. You can say that for me, CONCACAF and South America. For those two, those are I believe those would be considered like championships in a way because you're playing. You're not like in Asia where you're playing against groups or something like that, or in Africa where you just have to you win your group and then you have to play one other team and you're through. So it's kind of similar to that. That I feel like this is a championship.
I think as well, for so much of the time in CONCACAF, it's been the big two, America and Mexico. In South America, it's been the big two, Brazil and Argentina. And Canada put the cat amongst the pigeons this tournament, and they shook things up and they finished top. But as I say, it's a different level, it's a different quality. To put it into Scottishness, for me, it's like the Scottish League. You've got Celtic and Rangers, they're the big two, they run away with it. They dominate. Celtic look amazing. Rangers looked good. They both went into UEFA Champions League and struggled. Didn't get out the group. Didn't even make it into the Europa League as a third place finisher. And Rangers had the worst record ever in Champions League history. So you can be a big fish in your own pond, and then you go to a different pond, and it's like piranhas are waiting for you, just to keep a fish analogy going. So I think from what I've seen, there's been an overriding feeling of pride, and I think in general an acknowledgement of just how far Canada have come.
Yeah.
Because they've gone from ranked in the 90s up to the 30s at one point. They've dropped back down a little bit, but it's been a fantastic rise.
Yeah, and an unexpected rise too, if you think of it. Like nobody had them even. Like we were thinking, they're the first World Cup they're going to be in is the 2026 one.
Well, remember, it was meant to be a hex before COVID.
Yeah,
and they weren't even going to be in that. They had to go through the bizarre route of trying to beat everyone and then get a playoff game against who are finished fourth.
The fourth place team. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
and then get into another playoff after that.
Yeah, so I feel like they like America and the Mexico can, fans can say all they want about, whether, self-proclaimed, but they earned it, the being the top team in CONCACAF. And they just happen to be, like, after all is said and done, could be in the one of the harder groups to be in. Because I feel like the US definitely should have done better against Wales, and England is not a great team, a group, like a World Cup team. They do well in qualifying, but when they get to the big stages, they tend not to do well. So I feel like if the US or Mexico were in this group, I think they would have got rolled over too. Of course, I don't know if they would have said F Croatia, so maybe that might have been different. But I think, to me, like, I think I mentioned it before, the team that scares me the most out of these three was Morocco. Like, I feel like they're flying high on this thing. So I think unfortunately, I hope they could get a result, but I think it could be 3 losses for Canada going into this.
Yeah, I mean, it's very likely that could be the case. And, like, Canada's got its goal. Mexico's still looking for their first goal in this tournament. And the US have just got 1 goal so far in this tournament. So, I mean, Canada's more than held its own. And as I mentioned in part 1, 3 of the 4 halves that have been excellently played.
The team that's done the best so far is Costa Rica, even though they let 7 in 1 goal, but they won a game at least.
I know.
Right? That's the weirdest thing.
I just don't even understand how they won that, but we'll come to that when we look at the
and it was their first shot on goal.
I know.
It was their first shot on target in the whole tournament.
Absolutely baffling.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's good to be proud. It's good to have all these emotions. But what I will also say is some folk have been critical and they've been, like, shot down for it because there's ways to criticise and there's ways not to criticise. But I do feel that, yeah, we should enjoy it. We should savour that moment, that first goal. But if you speak to John Herdman, that's not why he was at this World Cup. If you'd said you've lost 3 games, I'm just saying worst case scenario. You lose 3 games, but you got your first goal. Are you happy with that?
No,
you might
for sure
publicly say something about, we've advanced from 1986, blah, blah, blah. But he'll be seething because he would have felt that they could have got their first victory, and they still might. And he was there to get out of this group.
Yeah.
And you saw that with what he was saying, that he was demanding. He was disappointed that they didn't take anything from Belgium because he's demanding. And we as supporters, we as media should also be more demanding of this team. It's all right to be demanding and critical and still be supportive. You can be both things. And I think that's the mindset that we've got to get into in this country if we are going to take the leaps that we need to take for 2026. Don't just be happy that we scored a goal and say, oh, we were better than we were in 1986. We should be bloody better than we were in 1986. It's a much better team. And world football's improved, and we've got a golden generation of players and some top talents, and we need to be more demanding of them. But it's okay to be demanding and critical. You can still be supportive as well. You can be both.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, I want to read a post that former Whitecap, Pamadou Ka, put on his Instagram. And I won't read it all. It's a lengthy post, but there's a couple of bits in it that really caught my eye. And it just starts off by saying, in Canada, 2 of my greatest achievements happened, which is my daughter's being born and my first coaching job. And he said, to see this beautiful country's performance at the biggest stage of soccer is fantastic and a great achievement for the country. 36 years ago was the last time, and ever since they've been off the radar and not been mentioned in any conversation when it came to the beautiful game. That's all very true. He says, to witness their rise and watching this group of men is something this country should be really proud of. Canada belongs on the world stage of football, and it's time that the nation fully support and stand behind this team. He then goes on to say, for the CSA, this is your moment to bring the nation together and create a platform for the men and women's game at all levels in Canada. There's no excuses anymore. This team and the future of soccer in Canada deserve better and more. And they do. The onus is on Canada Soccer to step up big time now.
100%. They need more. Both teams, both sides need more support and developing players and getting them in the right position so they can succeed. That's the biggest thing. Like, yes, it's great to get dual nationals to come in to play, but they need to start developing more players on top of that, like people that are born and bred here.
Absolutely, and give them the more opportunities. And the CPL is a great start, and on the women's side, it's still lagging way behind despite everything that was meant to be happening after the 2015 World Cup. I mean, we'll get into a little bit of the future for Canada in this part. I want to talk about something that royally fucked me off yesterday. Which was a tweet from TSN, a now deleted tweet, it has to be said, where they basically said, now that Canada's been eliminated, who are you cheering for now, Canada? Like, the corpse is still warm, never mind the fact that they've still got an actual fucking game to play.
Yeah, this is an idiot, like, young social media person who doesn't realize, like, you know, what are you talking about? Like, you could talk about this after the third game is over or something like that.
But there was presenters and people that were standing up for that tweet and saying that they didn't see anything wrong with it. And again, this comes into the mentality that is in this country by certain people in this country, and especially in the media, where they jump on it when it's big. Like when the women are in the Olympics and the World Cup, but primarily the Olympics, everyone's all over the team. Where are they in all the calls when it's not that? Where are they pushing for women's soccer? Where's the coverage of the women's soccer in these outlets the rest of the time? It's not there. And in this case as well, it kind of shows it's the small team stroke small country mentality. And like, again, to use a Scottishness for this, everyone knows I'm an East Fife fan. So when you talk to people, it's like, oh, who do you support? East Fife. No, who's your big team? What do you mean? It's like, are you Celtic or Rangers? No, I fucking hate both of them. East Fife is my team. And it's like that here. It's like, oh, you're cheering on Canada? Yeah, but who are you really cheering on for? Who are you really wanting to win the World Cup? And that's the mentality that has to change.
But yeah, for sure. And you could be like fans of certain countries, and there's no problem with doing that, but you're ultimately, I feel like it's either your number one team is Canada or don't cheer for them. That's what I feel like. Like, then if you're only cheering for Canada in their games and not overall, and you have another number one country, don't bother cheering for Canada. That's fine.
I mean, I'll be honest. Scotland play Canada, I'm going to cheer on Scotland, but I also want Canada to do well. That's because I'm Scottish. I'm not even a Canadian citizenship yet, so you can't take that away from me. But that attitude that, yeah, you've really got a bigger team. You really want Brazil or Portugal or obviously not Italy, because it was an Italian person that was kind of sticking up for them. But the other thing with that as well is One Soccer replied going, we're still cheering on Canada, thanks very much. So One Soccer get it. For all the criticism we've maybe done of One Soccer in the past, you can't knock their support of Canadian soccer, which the likes of TSN have not shown.
No.
And you've also then so many of the replies were people saying, still cheering for Canada, we've still got a game to play, this tweet should have waited till after the group stages, etc., etc. So yeah, that's just something I wanted to get off my chest. Really pissed me off. I'm clearly still in an angry mood. I'm still an angry bastard. And I like it.
He wants to kick the Charles round the balls. He wants to kick Kevin Keegan round his hall. He wants to scream and shout in Thatcher's face. He wants to train camp and get the human race. He's an angry bastard, I like it. He's an angry bastard, he's alright. He's an angry bastard, I like it. He's an angry bastard, he's alright.
So, let's move on. Final group games go at 7 a.m. on Thursday, December 1st. Yeah, horrible time for me. don't feel inclined to have to get up and watch that live now. I might just PVR it and have a lie-in. We'll see how that goes. Canada's taking on Morocco. Croatia's taking on Belgium. It's all to play for in the group for the other three teams after Morocco's 2-0 win over Belgium. What a performance from the Moroccans, but what an atmosphere, and what an atmosphere that's going to be electric and volatile and just brutal for Canada to go into on Thursday.
For sure. It's they have, obviously Morocco has everything to play for, which makes it even more difficult. I don't know if Morocco can just get by with just a draw or not, because it depends on, goal differential and everything. It'll be really tight either way. So I think they essentially they have to go for a win because they just need to be ahead of Belgium at this point. They need to remain ahead of Belgium. Because if Belgium wins and I think Croatia and they lose or something like that, then it could be then. I think.
It's so up for grabs. Like Belgium's not even guaranteed to be going through because I can see Croatia turning over Belgium the way that they've been playing. So then if they do that, then basically Morocco's through.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing because it's played at the same time. Croatia, if they can't afford to stumble, because they can get eliminated. All three of these teams, nobody's safe right now.
Yeah,
so they all got to play at the top of it.
Fantastic.
I'd love to see Canada play a spoiler, even though I kind of want Morocco to get through.
I know. See, I want Morocco to go through. So, like, if Canada lose and Morocco go through, I'm happy with that. But Canada could still win and Morocco could still go through. So that's your win-win.
That in that case, you'd have to have Belgium would either have to lose or they have to win by a couple goals in order for that to happen. So
that big win, those extra goals for Croatia certainly helped them. But I fancy Croatia to turn over Belgium because I just don't think Belgium.
Well, they will have Lukaku in there, but I don't know what kind of shape Lukaku is going to be in that third game.
Yeah, he came on, and that was a surprise because he was meant to be out for those first two games. But I mean, Morocco so deserved that victory, and
for sure.
They could have had another one with the free kick that was disallowed, and then eventually it looked like it was the first goal from a free kick that put them ahead, but it's now been given a touch to Romain Saiss in the 76th, and then Abdouklal sealed the deal with a lovely finish 2 minutes into stoppage time, and then Morocco leapfrogged Belgium in the group standings, and they've impressed. And I genuinely want Morocco and Croatia to go through.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of do, but I wish there was a way for Canada to get at least a point. Like maybe get a draw, and then I guess Croatia would have to win or draw, and if both draws happen, then Morocco and Croatia go through too.
I think a point does it for Morocco because that would take them to 5. So no matter then what happens in the other game,
yes, correct,
be fine.
Yeah.
So that's a win-win as well. What do you think though should happen with the Canadian team for this last game? Because there's various ways to approach it. You go full strength, integrity of the tournament and the group and all that pish. You have a mix of the guys that started so far, but you throw in some new faces, partly to give them their World Cup moment, partly to have a look at them for the future. So that some of them might even make their World Cup debuts so that they don't have that weight hanging over them come 2026.
What I would do is I would players that are a little bit older, like Atiba. I don't think Atiba should start. He's had his 100th cap and everything like that. Maybe you could save him as come on at late in the game or something like that.
Yeah, and he's had his World Cup moments.
But that's only if Eustáquio is injured. I don't know what his health is right now. So if Eustáquio can't start, then maybe you put Atiba and Coney together, and then bring in Atiba maybe near the beginning of the second half. You take him off as a celebration kind of thing. But I definitely, I honestly would like to see. One thing I would like to see is Alfonso playing closer to the top. So I'd like Sam in there, and then Tajon on the other side, and have Alfonso playing.
I'd like a back four. Because I think if they go with 3 at the back, Morocco are going to crucify them.
Yeah, that could be a possibility too. Maybe then you would definitely need Sam in there with Johnson, and I would love to see Derek Cornelius get a start. Or
see, I'd like to see Cornelius get the start. I'd like to see Waterman even get some minutes later on.
Yeah, I think Victoria is somebody that I think could, like, maybe they rest him or something like that. He's since they're eliminated, he is on the older side, and Morocco is a little bit speedier, so maybe Cornelius could, because Cornelius got a good blend of athleticism and size, so maybe that's a better option.
I think Cornelius should get the start like taking all loyalty out of it, and the fact that we know the guy and he's a Whitecaps player, etc., etc. I just think it's good to mix it up. Also, obviously, Canada want to finish on a high. They want their first point or points. Like, if they could get a win, they would love that as well. So that's why I don't think John Herdman will just throw everyone in.
Yeah.
But I'd like him to maybe be a bit choosy with his subs. So say we're 2 or 3 goals down. Then, if you've subs left, I'd like you to
empty the bench.
Yeah, like get guys to have their World Cup moment.
Liam Miller already came on, I think.
Yeah, Witherspoon, who was so influential for the team in the qualifying.
Fraser.
Get him even a couple of minutes, a cameo at the end. That would be fantastic for him. Yes, I'm biased because I love Spoonie and he's Scottish, but he deserves it for what he did in the qualifying. But yeah, Liam as well, he deserves it.
Yeah, and so I think whatever they can do to get as many people that little moment on the pitch, I would do that. Yeah, for sure.
Would you start Borjan?
Yeah, I would start him.
Yeah. I went back and forth of, do you give Sinclair a start? But then it's like, he's young. Borjan probably won't be there in the next cycle. So it's like these guys.
It's a little bit different because I feel like that could, like other players you can pick and choose, but your goalkeeper, I think you got to keep that stable because he kind of works the whole back end and he's a kind of a leader back there. So I think that put too much pressure on the back end and the goalkeeper if you put another player in there.
Yeah. Just to round off this part, I want to look, and we'll look at this a bit more as well when Zach gets back from his trip. Basically, what now for Canada? And I mean, what now is an after this game on Thursday. So there's been a lot of talk this tournament that Canada now belongs in the world stage in football terms, and they do. But there's a big difference in belonging and thriving. And that is the step that Canada and Canada soccer now needs to take, and what Pamadou was also alluding to with his Instagram post. How do you get that next step though? Well, there's struggles ahead. Most of our top players are plying their trade over in Europe, and that needs to continue, and that's what John Herdman has clearly said. He wants the top players doing that. Alistair Johnston's move to Celtic should be complete next week. It's basically a done deal. I was chatting to somebody at the VMSL game that was at on Friday night who lives next door to Alistair Johnston's uncle, who has been telling people, oh yeah, he's already signed, it's a done deal. And apparently his dad's in Qatar telling everyone, oh yeah, he's signed, it's a done deal. So we know that Johnston's going to Celtic. Tajon Buchanan apparently has many suitors in Europe as well, and there's going to be other guys that's looking for moves. There's a lot of guys over there. Some of them might move to bigger leagues, bigger clubs as well. All of that, Steve's just going to help this team grow in strength, but also in competitiveness, because they're going to be tested at high levels week in, week out.
Yeah, for sure. And then what that also happens, and then at that point, like with like a guy like Johnston going, Waterman's going to play a bigger part with Montreal, and he's going to be more of a starter. There'll be other players to take those spots, Canadian players. So essentially, you move the players that are on this stage at the World Cup up to the higher leagues, and you bring in another wave of players to your lineup and everything like that.
Yeah.
So I think that's what you're looking for. Domestically,
in MLS and CPL, you the next 2 years, you bring these players on with a look to they're the next ones that move up.
And then the CPL gets people to move up into their level, and then you just keep developing, and that's how you have to do it at this point. Like people,
and that's why the investment from Canada Soccer is huge. You have to continue this growth.
Like it's amazing that people don't realize like how important a domestic league is, because if you think of it, imagine I'll go to another sport. Imagine a country creates a league in hockey, maybe 2-3 years ago. And then now all of a sudden they have to play up against Canada at like a world stage. You think it's going to be like 4-1 or something like that? No, it's going to be like 20-1 at that point. So it's like you have to understand that Canada like have been doing this without a domestic league, and now that they have a domestic league, it should help out with getting even more players in the limelight and just developing out of because it's something about being as like an amateur team, and we talked about unattached FC before. Like when like even if it's the standards are not that high at CPL right now compared to other leagues, it's still a professional atmosphere, and you have professional coaches there. So you and there has a hint of professionalism that helps even for players that would have no idea. Like some of these players would be in VMSL probably, right? I'm assuming, or be like in Taiwan or Vietnam and Asia or some other countries or something like that, or like in third league or fourth league Germany or something like that,
or even lower. So many have gone over to like fifth, sixth, seventh tier in Germany and stuff,
and then going to Finland and stuff like that, and second league Finland. Like so, being at a top league in this one gives a little bit more leeway. Now they've even mentioned that they're going to be paying players more, so that's a good sign and stuff like that. So all these things kind of will snowball into something else, and eventually, once the CPL Men's League happens, it'll create more of a windfall for the women's league to start, and hopefully that doesn't take that long. But hopefully that happens even sooner than with this World Cup, because this World Cup, the Men's World Cup, however people want to say, CSA will make a lot of money going to this World Cup, probably combined with all the World Cups that they've gone in with the women's team, because the women's team just they didn't make enough money for that. Yep. So this should help. And just hopefully CSI doesn't line up their own pockets and actually spread the money down to the thing.
Hopefully it doesn't all go to Canadian soccer business, who are doing all they've signed so many deals every couple of days in the build up to this. It felt I was getting an email from Canada Soccer just saying what the latest sponsorship deal was that they'd signed. But you talk about domestic leagues. We touched on this last time. Every single player in that Saudi team plays in the Saudi league.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why, like, domestic leagues are important. A big concern, though, for me is obviously Canada's at the next World Cup. We're hosting in 2026 with the US and Mexico. That's not the concern. But it's the lack of competitive games and testing games.
Yeah, they need to play more. Although friendlies are not the greatest thing, like a lot of people don't qualify friendlies as competitive. For Canada, it will be if they play against good competition.
And that's what they're going to have to do now. But the problem with this, because initially I was thinking, well, there's going to be so many players over in Europe, I think you might actually see a lot of the friendlies over in Europe in the windows when they can. Yeah, that's great. That's what they need to do. But you've also then got like the Nations League, CONCACAF Nations League, that kind of derails it, and they're not quality games for a lot of it. You've got the Gold Cup as well. So they've got that, which will be a testing environment. But again, it's against CONCACAF. Dwayne Rollins today has said that two people have mentioned to him that in 2024, Canada will be at Copa America. He wasn't able to confirm at the time of recording this whether it's CONCACAF that's going to Copa America as a combined tournament, or whether it's just a couple of invites like US, Mexico, Canada,
like
whatever. That's the test that they need, and that's an actual competition.
Yes, 100%, and it's like in an environment that is like a World Cup too. So I think that's huge for them if they can do that. And if the thing is confirmed already, that's fantastic news. And so those are the things. And I think they should come up with, in order to develop depth as well, like they should put together MLS teams, the players, like a MLS like World Cup team or like a national team kind of thing, where they play Asian sides, and like maybe don't get the European players to come all the way out to Asia, but they need to play different styles like South Korea or Japan or on that side too, because it's hard for European players to travel all the way out there, obviously. But it might be easier for North American base players to play out there. So maybe have like a team and a B team and kind of spread it out and get more players into that role.
Well, you could get the US on board with that as well, even Mexico, because they'll be needing games as well. So it's like, okay, let's have a domestic Canada side against America, play some games in the international windows as well, the guys that's not called up. And have like an A and a B team and play two sets of friendlies at the same time in two different continents. I love that idea.
Split squad, yeah.
Do you feel John Herdman is the man to lead Canada into 2026? And do you think he will be the man to lead Canada into 2026?
Well, honestly, if we recorded this podcast yesterday, it might have been a different answer. But I like John Herdman. I don't know. Like maybe I don't. The only issue is I don't know how we would stay here for another 4 years. Like the part of me says that he wants to be part of a team that's hosting a World Cup. So in actuality, he doesn't have to worry about qualifying next time. He could actually do other things in order to mold the team together, and bring in other players. But part of me says that does he want to maybe look to other pastors or something? Look to other.
I know. See, I think exactly the same because I've read interviews with international managers in the past, and they've said how difficult it is because they miss the hands-on day-to-day stuff.
Yeah.
And that's when you're in a normal competition cycle. This isn't a normal competition cycle now for John. He's going to have a lot of meaningless stroke meaningful, because obviously every game can be meaningful because you're looking at players and you're getting chemistry, etc., etc. But you know what I mean? The competitiveness isn't there in a lot of these games that's coming up. And is that enough for him?
Yeah,
I think,
and the thing is that really brought me to that is speculation too, is because when you were looking, especially after the Belgian game, there was a lot of English media that was mentioning about John Herdman, and they didn't say that he should take over. I mean, England. I don't recall very many people saying that, but they did mention he was English quite often. In those articles,
there's going to be clubs that look for that. Again, to use a Scottish example, Alex McLeish was the Scotland manager. He did well with Scotland, so English Premier teams came in for him, and the lure of that took him away from managing the national team and probably a hell of a lot more money as well.
Yeah.
So you've got that if an English Championship or lower Premiership team came in and said, "Oh, you know what? I'd like to take you over to us," that would be hard for him to turn down. But that said,
I'm not sure if he's made for club soccer.
No. I was going to say as well, I don't know how much his stock is now, because he's obviously taken Canada far, but if he got us out of the group, his stock was red hot.
Oh, yeah.
Now I don't know if it is as hot.
No, but I don't know how much I think he's an international soccer manager. I don't know if he's a club soccer manager, because his, and I'm not saying him in particular, maybe he can be the exception to the rule, but a lot of coaches that have this raw attitude, the players sometimes, because they're really highly paid and they're top players, right? They sometimes tune the manager out eventually, especially if things don't go well.
Well,
so
what I would say
John Herdman's
is look at Scott Arfield, who didn't like John Herdman's approach to things, and he'd be dealing with that if he went to the UK with a lot more players.
Yeah, and I think that he would be somebody that's good in small doses and not like an everyday kind of thing. So I think
that's true. You don't get, if you've got that every day, players will tune you out, as you say, and you're not getting that lift. Whereas if you're getting them every couple of months, you get that lift and you take them to run through a wall for you.
Like, my bold prediction would be that eventually, whether it's this cycle or the next cycle, he might be the next coach of England. Like, that would be my that
would be very, very bold, and I would worry.
No, I'm just saying.
I would worry what the media would do to him, to be honest, because they're brutal.
I know, but I think he's somebody that can handle that over the short term or something. I just feel like I know how much you hate England and everything, and I'm not a big fan.
Like, genuinely, if he had taken us out of the group, I could have seen England making a play for him.
No, I'm just saying maybe it's not after this World Cup. Maybe it's after the next one where he becomes the coach. So one of those, if he does well. The thing is, England always has a manager that is always seems to be withdrawn. Yeah, and doesn't always seem to be out. Yeah, and so I think he might show a little bit of a different attitude where he brings up players. And they got, whatever you want to say about the older players, they got a lot of young talent that's been playing in Germany and other parts of the continent that have actually developed the solid players.
Yeah, I'm going to make my bold prediction. I don't think he'll lead Canada into the 2026 World Cup.
Yeah, I could see that not happening as well. Yeah, I know I wouldn't put a prediction on that, but I don't there's a possibility that maybe he wants to move on and then they bring in somebody else. I think that Canada will have a lot of suitors though.
Oh,
a lot of
yes.
people that will want to be coach of this
There's
team.
so many managers from around the world that would love to have this group of players.
Yeah, I think the current coach of Netherlands, he's always somebody that moves around a lot. I can't remember his name. I'm drawing a blank on his name. He was the coach of the South Korean side too when they were in the World Cup.
I can get Robert
Uh,
Martinez in from Belgium. He might be out of a job after this tournament.
Yeah, he praised Canada too, so it's good there.
Yeah, I
He
don't
could go
think the
from one-
Croatian coach will be coming over.
He could go from one quote unquote golden generation to another, I guess.
Exactly. Last thing for this bit, and again, this is a thing that I feel that Canada Soccer have a huge part to play in this. We've got to keep the fan and media interest at fever pitch for this team. Hosting obviously helps because we know they're going to be here, but that's a long way away. You're talking 3.5 years. How do you build on all this attention that the team's got? How do you keep soccer in the headlines? How do you keep people to be soccer fans and feel, oh yeah, Canada's a world-class nation, especially when they can't watch the games because they're going to be on One Soccer. That's not a knock to One Soccer.
Yeah.
It's just a fact. How do you then
I-
keep that level of excitement and fever pitch?
I think you got to have at least one major country coming in as a friendly per year, at least one, if not two. Obviously, going to Copa America helps. Like I'm talking about like a country, like bringing a friendly like a Germany, like a Spain, like something like that. Where
And I believe Copa
so
America would also be in TSN as well, which would have more eyes on it.
Yeah, and that friendly has to be a co-production between TSN and Canada One Soccer, so it is visible.
Or
Like you-
CBC or any Sportsnet, anyone, just so that folk can see it and know this team.
I don't think it'd be Sportsnet. I think it'll be TSN or it'll be Canada One Soccer. But I think Canada One basically puts their people on TSN or something, so they have their kind of talent on there. So it's kind of co-produced that way. So I personally think that's the way to do it. You have to bring in a big opponent every year and make it a big thing.
It's huge now because folk have bought into this team. Folk have invested into this team. Yeah, there's going to be disappointment after that Croatia game. But when folk look back at the end of this tournament, they're just going to look back on this Canada team and say, I loved watching them play. They were great. I want to see more. I want to follow these guys. And with streaming just now, you need so many different streaming services to watch all these players at club level, never mind anything else. So internationally, you've just got to keep that up. So Canada Soccer need to do a good job at keeping people on board and keeping all media on board, not just their little favoured ones that get to ask all the questions on the media calls. And it'll be interesting to see how many of them are still sniffing around for some friendlies in a couple of years when it's not in the World Cup cycle as well.
Another thing would be to have TSN if you're doing like have a half an hour weekly show on and having Canadians around the world in the thing and just highlighting their what they've done over this week or something like that.
Canucks abroad, get on that. Get in touch with the stations and get your guys producing a show. Everyone would love to watch it. But that is it for our Canada chat for this episode, but it's not it for our World Cup chat, because we're going to look at the World Cup so far since the last episode after this.
Hi, I'm Carl Valentine. You're listening to the AFTN podcast.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part, it's our Artist of the Month here at AFTN for the month of November, and the penultimate song from London band Suede as well. Animal Nitrate. It was the band's third single overall. It was a big breakthrough hit that got them to the attention of people around the world, especially in the UK, where it reached number 7 in the charts, on their self-titled debut album as well. Fantastic song, still sounds fresh to this very day. We've got one more song to come from Suede to kick off the next part.
The video had a little bit of a Twin Peaks kind of look to it, I remember. And because it had that paper mache pig on the lap.
Yes.
It was kind of a weird, kind of
had very
that
weird
vibe.
imagery though in their early days as well, because the lead
'cause
singer
like I said,
Brett Anderson
have you-
wanted to go for a androgynous look.
Have you seen like Twin Peaks?
Oh, I love Twin Peaks. It's one of my
Remember
well,
that? Remember
let me
scene,
just
the,
correct
the
that. I
scene
love
in
the
the
original Twin Peaks,
Yeah,
but it
yeah.
came back not so much.
Oh no, I don't think I even watched it when it came back. But I'm talking about that scene in with the curtains, the red curtains.
Yes.
So they had the curtains too with the imaging and the paper mache pig and stuff like that. So when I watched it, I go, this kind of seems like Twin Peaks a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, Twin Peaks. That the very original series is one of my all-time favorite TV shows.
Definitely worth a watch.
And the return of it, the first maybe 6-ish episodes, well, the first few episodes were good, and then it just went like
I never watched it.
Too weird. Because I
Yeah.
love David Lynch, and like Lost Highways, another film that I love, and
Mulholland Drive. Did he do
Mulholland
Mulholland
Drive's a great one as well.
Yeah.
Eraserhead, I can take or leave, but yeah. Let's not start talking about David Lynch. I could be here all
Sure.
day, but we'll save that for our David Lynch extra podcast. For this part and the next part, though, we're going to look at the World Cup so far, the matches played since our last show. We're not going to delve into everything in depth. We're just going to chat about some of the stories coming out of each group, because the first 2 rounds of group games are now done and dusted. So we've already looked at Group F. We'll look at the other 7 groups, and of course we'll start off with Group A. And since our last show, 2 games played in this group. And it was Qatar 1, Senegal 3, where the hosts became only the second home country to be eliminated at the group stage, and the first to be knocked out after their first 2 games. Thankfully for Canada they were, otherwise Canada would have been the first country that was going home.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a much better performance from them, Steve, in this one. They were robbed of a first half penalty. Senegal were in command, and the commentator described Senegal as strangling Qatar in the second half, which they pretty much did. But Qatar got their World Cup moment. They got their World Cup goal. Mohamed Montari, man that's written his name in the history books for all that you think about the country and how they got it and everything. It is nice for the host country and for the players and for their fans to have that moment. 12 minutes of the game was remaining. Those hopes were killed 6 minutes later, but still, with 12 minutes to go at 2-1, they had hope.
Yeah.
And Senegal, though, very, very worthy winners.
Yeah, I think so. It's going to be a really nice clash against them and Ecuador to see who goes through.
Oh,
'Cause
yeah.
I feel like
That's
Netherlands
a
are
tasty
definitely
one.
through.
Yeah. It was interesting as well how quickly the stadium's very expensive seats emptied after Senegal got that third goal.
Yeah.
Although
it happened against Ecuador too, I think.
I've got to say, because obviously the white robes that a lot of the Qataris wear, which are so striking when you see it just in the stadium, there's been a few times that I've not been sure if it's empty white seats or if it's people in white robes. And then I have a closer look and I'm like, oh yeah, there's a head there.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
it's just oh no, white out.
Yeah. It seems interesting. Yeah. I think they left it quickly after the Ecuador game too, once the second goal went in there
Yeah.
as well. So it's I guess it's a common thing in Qatar to leave early.
Probably beat the traffic,
Yeah.
which has caused some issues because Zach had tickets for 2 games in a day, Canada game and then the Germany game, and didn't make it into the Germany game until 30 minutes into it because of traffic issues. But
But
I'm
he
sure
still got to see the
he got to see the main stuff. And I'm sure he'll regale us with all these tales when he gets back. So the other Group A game was Holland 1, Ecuador 1. And Ecuador, they're a joy to watch. I have loved them in their first two games, I've got to say. It's such a shame, really, that both them and Senegal can't advance. Holland took the lead through Cody Gakpo, but then they didn't look like world beaters after that. And Ecuador had the ball in the net at the end of the first half. It was ruled out. They tied things up 3 minutes into the second half through their talismanic Valencia. Also hit the post from a wicked Plata shot. And now they've got this wait as to whether Valencia can go. I haven't actually seen if he's good to go in Game 3 or not, because he went off on a stretcher. It wasn't looking good. But Ecuador's playing good. Who you got in this group? Holland and Ecuador. They're top the group on 4 points each. They've got identical records. Senegal's third on 3 points.
So I think I had Holland and Senegal going through. So I'll probably stick with that at this point. I still feel like Senegal, if they had Sadio Mane in the game, I think they definitely would have been a favorite. But without him, I think it's closer for sure. And I think Ecuador is potentially can. I wouldn't even call it an upset because I think they're very closely matched, Senegal and Ecuador.
Ecuador's just playing just so good football just now that even if they don't have Valencia, I think they can probably get past Senegal. And then, I mean, it would be a major shock if Qatar suddenly pull a win out against
for sure,
Argentina, but you never know.
But the thing is if you think of it, if Valencia can't go,
Holland, not Argentina.
Yeah, and Senegal has got no Mane. I think it's a very even matchup at that point. And I think either team could go. But I do give Senegal a slight advantage.
That game goes on Tuesday, so by the time that some of you are listening to this podcast, it might already have taken place, those two matches. At 7 a.m. kickoff.
Let me know if I'm right.
Yes, the other games on Tuesday are in Group B. They're 11 a.m. Pacific time kickoff. The Group B games, wow. Iran 2, Wales 0.
I did not expect that after their result against England.
I didn't expect that after the first half. That was horrible, but it was such an enjoyable second half.
Yeah.
But yeah, after that result against England, where we pondered, were their minds elsewhere? How good were England? We still don't really have an answer to that last question. I mean, it didn't have the excitement of some of the other games, but it did have a lot of action, end-to-end stuff, a lot of talking points. This was the Iran that I expected to see in this tournament, though, because they've been strong in qualifying. They looked like they had a weight lifted off them. They sang the national anthem. Was that maybe something that kind of lifted a weight off them? They deserved all 3 points, big time. Wales were pretty disappointing. Iran hit the right post and then the left post in one stunning attack, and they pushed hard in the second half. Wales made history, though, by having the first player, and so far only player, sent off in the tournament when Wayne Hennessy, their goalkeeper, saw a late red card. I think it was maybe a 40th anniversary nod to Harold Schumacher and his flattening of Battiston at the 1982 World Cup. Still haven't forgotten that or forgiven the Germans. It looked like 10 men Wales were going to hold on. Iran, though, hit twice at the death. Chesney fired him ahead with a 98th minute long ranger. The first goal scored this tournament from outside the box. And then 3 minutes later, a 2-on-2 breakaway quickly turned into a 4-on-2 breakaway. And Ramin Razilan scored Iran's second, sent them into dreamland. And yeah, well deserved.
Yeah, for sure. And so I was a little surprised that, like I said, I ran. But the thing is, if you think of it, you lose 6-2, you lose 2-0, it's still a loss, whatever the case is. It's just that they didn't look very good. So you didn't expect anything from the second game. Because a lot of things can change from the qualifying to the actual tournament. And so in this case, you're right. This is the Iran that we expected to see that potentially could go through and still could go through.
Interestingly, cramp hit both the teams pretty hard. It was the early kickoff, so I'm glad to see the back of that. The other game in the group, England 0, USA 0, the battle of the obnoxious social media fan bases and media. we said after the first game, or I said, that I don't know how much you could read into that as to how good England were. I genuinely still don't know if they're a good team or not. The US were the better side for chunks of this one, and they made them look quite ordinary. Pusalik hit the bar with a great shot in the first half, but it wasn't a very good game. That's the thing.
Yeah, I didn't like. I know people would say England, like the US, were the better team, but it wasn't very much to choose from. They just happened to like stifle England, and England was not able to get through at all at any points to break them down. There was maybe a couple times they were able to get through into the final third, but you just remember the most thing I remember from that game is just the England passing back and forth in their own end and not being able to move it forward. And
they were also booed off the park by their supporters as well.
Yeah, I
top of the group on 4 points, and you're booing your team off.
Because I feel like that they wanted England to be a little bit more adventurous and not just be too careful. I felt like they were being too careful, which made USA look better than they were.
Yeah, because USA, I didn't think were that good against Wales, but they certainly looked a lot better in this one. I mean,
I feel like if USA played this against any of the other teams that were like the number one team in the group, I don't think they would have survived. I think other teams like Spain or Germany or like the top teams, they would have broken the US down. England's not capable of doing that.
No. England, though, they're leading the group on 4. Iran second on 3. US third on 2. Wales bottom on 1. It's England-Wales, but Wales need to win by 3 goals.
Yeah, that's going to be hard. So I think England's in the driver's seat to make it through.
Yeah, they're pretty much through.
It's really Iran and USA. Do Iran play for the draw and clinch it, or do they like it's going to be USA's going to have to break down Iran at this place.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game plan.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if does US pressure high and keep them open themselves up for the counterattack, which Iran has shown they can do now, especially, or do they sit back and wait for the Iran to make a mistake? It'll be interesting to see.
I fancy Iran to do this. When Iran beat them the last time, which I think was in '98, I actually had money on Iran, so I won some money on them.
That's good.
I fancy them to do it. Have you seen the stuff in the build-up, though, with all about the Iranian flag?
The only thing, I haven't seen anything about the flag. I know somebody the flag was taken away from somebody or something like that.
That was in the stadium. But America's US Soccer social media tweeted out a picture of the old Iranian flag without the Islamic Republic symbol on it. And they said they were doing that in solidarity of the protests in the country and women's rights. So Iran, furious, launched a complaint to FIFA looking for the US to be kicked out of the tournament because they said it was...
I didn't hear this part. I totally missed this part.
Yeah, they said it was racist. And then they've taken down the tweet now, and Greg Berhalter had to apologise at his press conference, but was very keen to stress that him, the players and all the backroom team had nothing to do with that post. They knew nothing about it and they didn't agree with it.
Yeah, and the thing is the other funny thing apparently came from that media scrum or something like that. Somebody was asking Greg Berhalter when they're gonna move the naval blockade for Iran. And like what's Greg Berhalter gonna say about the naval blockade? That was
I'll just phone Joe Biden up.
Retweeted that. Yeah, exactly.
Because the thing is, like, going back to the flag, a lot of people in America have played it down saying it's no big deal, we're just showing solidarity to that.
Yeah, but what if somebody done something to their flag?
Yeah, flip that around. If someone did that to the American flag and said, we're doing that because of your anti-abortion stance, or if they did it to the Canadian flag and said, because of all the Indigenous children that died, we're altering the maple leaf and stuff, they'd be outraged. So you've got to think about this kind of stuff.
You could do the same comment for the Americans too about the Indigenous people being...
Well, yeah, exactly. So it's But see, this is the thing. There's all this hand-wringing from these countries. And I was listening to one of the Scottish podcasts I listened to, Off the Ball and BBC Scotland, and they made a very interesting point, because there's obviously been a lot of stuff made about this World Cup going to Qatar and the lack of gay rights there. England hosted the World Cup in 1966 where homosexuality was illegal in the UK and it only became decriminalised in 1967.
Yeah.
So it's happened all over. Anyway, don't want to be accused of more anti-English bias, as I'm often accused of on the podcast. Hello, Peter Seward, who's always saying I'm very anti-English. Angus Walker as well. I don't know where that came from, Steve, that people think that I'm anti-English.
No, I don't recall anything.
No. I don't like their national team. It's a rivalry. Just like Whitecaps fans don't like Seattle and Portland. It's a rivalry. Man U fans don't like Man City fans and vice versa. It's a rivalry. But I don't want to be thought of as being anti-English, so I'm going to bring you Wavelength a little bit earlier now in the show. And for those unaware, our Wavelength section is where we play a song about football by a band, or it could be by a team or whatever. And we often have a theme as well. So this month's theme is World Cup songs. Now, I'll say this now, I'll preface this now. This song may cause some offence to some people, so if you're easily offended, just fast forward, probably not suitable for work, blah, blah, blah. But I wanted to play an English World Cup song, just to show that I don't have any anti-English feelings. And it's friends of the show, Steve, Cunt and the Gang, they're back. This is a song that they released in both 2006 for the World Cup in Germany and 2010 for the World Cup in South Africa. And it's just a song to encourage the English fans. And it's called Let's Have a Wank for England.
My dad told me a secret back in 1966. Before every England World Cup game, he wanked his hairy prick. And to this day, he still maintains he helped him win the cup. He spunked into a football sock to save him mopping up. So this year, before the warm-up games, I copied my old man. And we beat the Mexicans and flew to win over Japan. So if we wank for luck, how can it hurt? Unless your cock is sore. Take your helmet in your hand and think of Bobby Moore. Let's go to South Africa and win the World Cup. And pray to baby Jeebus Barry's injury heals up. I'm gonna wank my veiny pipe until it spunks up. To help us win the cup for England. Let's have a wank. Let's have a wank. Let's have a wank for England. It might bring us luck if you give your hand a fuck. We'll make it a success, and there's nothing to lose except your mess. If our boys pull on the England shirt and give everything they can, then I don't care if John Terry's cock's out of control or Rooney likes fucking nans. I wouldn't care if Capello was a nonce. If he brings the World Cup home, he can do what the fuck he wants. Now Rio has got injured, people don't give us a prayer. But come on Lennon, get a crossing, Crouch will win it in the air. He'll knock it down to Rooney, who will tee up Stevie G. And as he scores, I'll strangle my sausage till it does a sexy wee. Let's go to South Africa and win the World Cup. And if it goes to penalties, hope we don't fuck it up. I'm gonna wank my stiffy off until it spunks up. To help us win the cup for England. Let's have a wank. Let's have a wank. Let's have a wank for England. It might bring us luck if you wank and chuck your muck. We'll make it a success, and there's nothing to lose except your mess.
Cunt and the Gang there, Let's Have a Wank for England. Released, as I mentioned, in 2006 and 2010. Trying to encourage a way, Steve, to get England. It's like his dad did it in 1966 and they won the World Cup. I'm surprised that people haven't taken that on board because there's a lot of wankers in England. So you'd think they would be world champions more than they are already just the once.
Totally can understand that.
There's also another version of that song that was released in 2008 called I've Had My Last Wank for England after they didn't qualify for the Euros. So maybe I'll give that a little airing as well once England are out of the competition.
Also, you could play it during the Euros in a couple of years as well.
You can also find that song on their 2009 album, Here's One I Knocked Out Earlier. Let's get back to the football chat, just to round up this part with a look at Group C. Poland 2, Saudi Arabia 0. A goal in each half saw the Poles get all 3 points. Their first in the 39th from Zielinski was against a run of play after the Saudis were playing some nice stuff. In the end, they sealed the deal with 8 minutes remaining as Robert Lewandowski got his first ever World Cup goal. You saw what it meant to him. You saw what it meant to the fans. Also now ties Pele on 77 international goals, although I'm sure Pele will somehow find another 10 goals that he scored against some small country that we don't know about. That seems to happen all the time.
Yeah, no, it was kind of obviously Saudi Arabia coming off that high against beating Argentina. Obviously, there was a little bit of a letdown. So, Poland was able to take advantage. And you're right. It's I didn't realize Lewandowski, coming into this tournament, that Lewandowski never scored.
No, I totally either didn't know or had forgotten that fact. But I mean, it's nice that he got that.
Yeah, because maybe I merged the goals he might have scored in the European competitions with the World Cup, and I thought he scored more in the international competitions. But yeah, good for him. I think he got stopped on a penalty against Mexico earlier in the tournament. So kind of similar to Alfonso's former teammate Alfonso Davies, where they got stopped on a penalty and scored in open play.
Saudis didn't look too bad. Poland haven't let a goal in the competition yet.
Yeah.
Argentina 2, Mexico 0. 2 second half goals from Argentina. First, cracking long ranger from Messi. Got their first points of the tournament. Mexico had done well in the first half in a very physical game. But I think from a Mexican point of view, I think if they'd been a bit braver, they could have maybe got something from this game. They seemed scared to open up, and then they went one behind. They had to open up, and then they lost the second goal. They just ended up giving, I don't know, they didn't give a good account of themselves. They didn't want to give Messi space, and they were punished for that. Yeah,
it's showing too much respect to the other opposition and not trusting yourself. Similar, Saudi Arabia, and that's the thing with the difference between Saudi Arabia and Mexico. Saudi Arabia probably felt in going into that second half, especially against Argentina, that they had nothing to lose. So let's just go out and play it out. Whereas Mexico probably think of them as a better side, so they feel like they can score something and get good results, so they play a little bit more scared. So sometimes these teams need to play a little bit less with fear and just play to their level.
Poland now lead the group on 4 points. Argentina second on 3 points. Saudi also have 3 points. Mexico's bottom on 1. All 4 teams could still advance. Poland play Argentina. Mexico play Saudi Arabia. That's 11 a.m. Pacific time on Wednesday. Who you got in this one?
This was difficult because I could see Poland and Argentina drawing. And so if that happens, then Argentina's in big danger, because I think possibly a win by Saudi Arabia or definitely a win by Saudi Arabia puts Argentina out, and win by Mexico could potentially put them out too, depending on how many goals they win by. So and Poland's not safe either, because if they lose, they could be knocked out too, depending on the result of the game. So this one's a really where you have to have 2 screens and you got to watch both games at the same time.
I think Mexico's been pretty disappointing, and I could see the Saudis beating them, but at the same time, Mexico could just suddenly come from nowhere, turn on a great performance, and if there's a winner in that other match, then who knows? Could even end up drawing lots for goal difference or whatever.
And that's the thing with the Mexico-Saudi game, which makes it really like a tasty matchup, is because both teams know they can win if potentially Mexico needs to win in order to get through, while Saudi Arabia, if they win, they get through automatically.
So 3 groups down, 4 groups left to look at. We'll continue with Group D after this.
Hi, I'm Mike Dean. You're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
Thank you.
See you in your next life when we'll fly away for good. Stars in our own car, we can drive away from here. Far away, so far away, down to Worthing and work there.
Welcome back to the final part of this episode of There's Still Time, the AFTN Soccer Show, and kicking off this part, it's our last song. It's always the sad time of the month. The last song from our Arts of the Month, from London, England, Suede. I kept the best to last. It's my favourite track by Suede. It's the last track on their self-titled debut album from 1993, The Next Life. See you in the next life. And we'll see Canada at the next World Cup. They've still got a game to go though. We've got 4 groups left to look at, and 2 of the groups we've got a lot to look at because they've had lots of games played since our last episode. But we're going to start with Group D. Australia 1, Tunisia 0. Somehow the Aussies got through this one unscathed with their first World Cup finals win since 2010 and their first clean sheet in the tournament since 1974 in a red-hot atmosphere. The Tunisian fans, like the Moroccan fans, have been absolutely phenomenal throughout this competition. Mitchell Duke got the 23rd minute winner for Australia. Fantastic twist and header. Not really a lot to talk about in this one.
No, but it was surprising. I didn't think Australia would get the win. I thought Tunisia, after their last showing, I thought they would do more better in this game. I think they're basically out at this point.
Yeah. France 2, Denmark 1. France became the second team to book the spot in the round of 16 with a hard-fought victory over Denmark. Not a great first half, certainly better in the second. And Mbappe double did the damage. Opened the scoring just past the hour mark. The Danes levelled through Andreas Christensen 7 minutes later. And then the French got their deserved winner with 4 minutes to go. France now top Group D with a 100% record on 6 points. The rest is very much all to play for though. Australia, amazingly, are second on 3. They played Denmark, who are on a single point. And should be the winner of that one moves on. Tunisia, also on a point, now play France. It's hard to see them getting that, although you don't know what France might put out there.
Yeah, exactly. The France is because they're dealing with a lot of niggles and they've already lost a lot of people to injury. Do they put like a second unit out there and try to see what they can do? And they don't even care if they do lose or not at that point. And that's where it could really put a wrench in the works, because if Tunisia does pull out a victory, does that mean that and if the other team goes to draw? Does that make change everything? Because I think Australia's goal differential is not very good, because I think they lost by a couple of goals, right?
Well,
or 2,
that's
3.
the thing. Like right now, say if France win and Australia draw, Australia's going through with a -2 goal difference.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's just baffling.
But if Tunisia pulls off the upset and Denmark and Australia draw, then Tunisia's through.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Well, it would be. I was going to say it'd come to goal difference, but no, it would be. It would be Tunisia that's through. If Denmark win, they'll be through.
Yeah. A lot to play for. And the fact that France already qualified or are through it makes it more interesting in this case.
I think the Denmark-Australia game is going to be horrible because the Aussies are just going to be so defensive and they're just going to go for that point. That's a 7 a.m. game on Wednesday as well. That's maybe not one to get up super early for. Group E. So this is a very, very interesting group as well. It's good that we've got all this interest, but Japan 0, Costa Rica 1, which, I mean, we talked last episode about shock results. This is a stunner.
Yes.
Just because how terrible Costa Rica were.
And how Japan beat Germany, like what? Like I can't believe Japan had such a letdown. They were in the driver's seat. A win against Costa Rica would have put them through, I think.
Yeah,
almost virtually. So that's where it was like a major shocker to me that
it was a horrible first half of football as well.
Yeah,
as a lot of them have been. There's been 17 goalless first halves in the 32 games so far.
Yeah,
and some of the second halves haven't been great.
And then Costa Rica wins with the only shot they've had in the tournament so far. Like they're basically shooting 100% right now at this point.
It's amazing. And it's Keisha Fuller that got the goal. Felt for the Japanese fans, who again were excellent. Costa Rica, outpossessed, outshot, outpassed, one shot on target in the whole tournament, but yet they've got a chance of going through. A slim chance, I would say, though. Spain won, Germany won, which was the big game of the group. And I think going into the tournament, it's the game that was meant to decide which one of these two would finish first in the group and which one would finish second. Heading into it, Germany were in peril, but that Costa Rica win gave them a lot more wiggle room and made them a lot more alive than they probably thought they were going to be. Spain hit the bar early. Germany had a goal disallowed. Spain took the lead in the 62nd minute, but then Niklaus Füllkrug levelled with 7 minutes to go, and all of a sudden, Germany's right back in it, and you've got to say they're kind of favourites to go through now because they're playing Costa Rica.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. It's like Japan needs to have like one of those same things that they had when it comes to like the way they played against Germany in order to pull an upset. Otherwise, I think it's almost. I don't see how Germany can even draw against Costa Rica. I think they would. They have. Or I should say, I don't see how Costa Rica can draw against Germany. I see them as heavy favorites at this point to win this game and get through.
Yeah, and Spain, Japan's going to be interesting. Spain obviously just need a point to go through. I mean, Japan, if they just go for it, they've nothing to lose. They're going to have to go for it, basically.
And that's where it could open them up to more counterattacks, and Spain punishes them at that point.
And that's an 11 a.m. Pacific time. We're on Thursday, so that's good. The last two groups are the groups we haven't talked about yet in the show, because when we brought the last episode out, groups G and H hadn't played any games. So we'll rattle through the four in each one and any talking points, which for some of the games has not been a lot. But then we'll look at the lie of the land. So Group G, Switzerland won, Cameroon nil. It was not a classic. The main talking point being Mbolo, the Cameroon-born player that moved to France with his mum when he was 6. She married a Swiss national. He became Swiss. He scored the goal that broke Cameroon hearts, and his dad still lives in Cameroon. And you could tell it was an emotional moment for him. He didn't really know how to process it. It's tough.
Yeah, definitely a lot of mixed emotions there. And then obviously the other game in that day was Brazil and Serbia. Brazil didn't look very comfortable, but they also didn't look in danger either. And they won 2-0 with a couple of goals in the 62nd and 73rd minute.
Yeah, I'd been going on about Serbia because I'd mentioned that Dino, my complex manager, had said they're going to do it this time. And for 3 halves of football from their 4 so far, I was like, what is he talking about?
Yeah.
And then stoppage time today, we saw the Serbia that he was talking about. But we'll come to that now, because it's Serbia 3, Cameroon 3, one of the games of the tournament. Both sides couldn't afford to lose. Cameroon changed their goalkeeper for this one after head coach Roberto Song wanted what he said was a more traditional goalkeeper. After the goalkeeper in their first match, 41% of his touches were outside of his box. Which for a goalkeeper is like, what?
Yeah, I did not notice that. Well, maybe I don't think I watched the Cameroon-Switzerland game that much, so that's why. But yeah, that's interesting. But this goalkeeper obviously, I guess, was untraditional as well, letting so many goals in, especially at the stoppage time of the first half.
Well, I mean, Serbia dominated from the start. They cracked one off the post. They couldn't get the breakthrough. Cameroon looked a bit toothless, but then they stunningly took the lead when Castelletto finished at the back post. And then first half stoppage time, something in Serbia just just flicked a switch and they equalised a minute into first half stoppage time with a great header, their first attempt on target in 3 halves of football, like Costa Rica. Then 2 minutes later, they led when Sergic fired home. Alexander Mitrovic got an easy goal in the 53rd, and you thought, oh, well, that's it now. Serbia's home and dry. Then a bizarre goal in the 63rd minute for Vincent Abubakar, who I think he thought he was offside, had a lovely finish. Flag went up for offside, and then VAR's like, oh no, he was onside, and the goal stood. Then 3 minutes later, they're level. Choupo-Moting, Bayern Munich guy, Zach was in the stadium cheering him on. 3-3. What a match.
Yeah, crazy match back and forth. It wasn't the last match of that today that had that kind of crazy feeling, but it was, listen, just to think back and forth, it was really fun to watch.
And then the last game of the group, Brazil 1, Switzerland 0. Neymar missing for the last 2 group games at least. Obviously, I did not shed many tears over that. Makes Brazil a lot more likeable to cheer for when he's not on the pitch. This was another horrible game. Brazil thought they had the lead in the 64th. VAR struck again. The commentators were so annoying with it, though, because the referee reviewed VAR. He had his hand up, which is the standard signal that it's offside, and he pointed to the ground, and the commentators go, the goal's given. It's like, no, it's clearly not. He's got his hand up for offside. And then the commentators were baffled as to why the referee hadn't been more clear. He couldn't have been more clearer. Yeah. Anyway, that's just another rant from me. Casemiro finally got the breakthrough with 7 minutes remaining. Brazil have now not only kept 2 clean sheets, they've not allowed a single shot on target in their first 2 matches.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Brazil that people don't realize. Everybody thinks, oh, they're attacking team, but they're always a very strong defensive team. I think the times they are don't succeed in these tournaments is when their defense is lacking. And this year it's been like very clear. They're playing against Serbia, who was probably, and the thing is the attacking way also scares the opponent. So they're you imagine how much they're putting through. They're just to stop Brazil instead of playing for, like, it's the whole too much respect for their opponent.
Yeah, it's the whole Messi thing.
Yeah,
it's like you're putting too much focus on Brazil to stop them scoring without actually trying to think, how are we going to score?
Exactly.
I mean, Brazil, Poland and Morocco are the only teams not to give a goal up so far, which is tremendous for them. I mean, Brazil's through now with their 6 points, and barring a shock win for Cameroon over them, it's basically a winner goes through shootout now between Serbia and Switzerland. Switzerland's on 3 points, Serbia's on 1. If either team get the win, they should go through. A draw, though, is also good for the Swiss, but they can't sit back and go for that draw because Serbia showed in those glimpses today that they're very dangerous.
For sure, 100%.
I'm sticking with Serbia. I'm sticking with what Dino's told me, and they're going to go through. But
yeah,
I'd love Cameroon to shock Brazil, and it was Cameroon that went through instead.
Yeah, but the thing is with me is that Switzerland plays that, that style that like really stifles people, and I don't know if Serbia can handle that. It's interesting, it's an interesting matchup between 2 middle tier European sides, and so it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I'll go with you, and I'll say Serbia as well because of the fact that I'll trust your friend.
Last group, Group H, which I've got to say, by half time of the second game of this group, I was ready to christen it the Group of Dearth, because there was a severe dearth of enjoyment in any of the games. There was just no entertainment in it at all. It was Uruguay 0, South Korea 0, in an absolutely horrible match that had 1 shot on target between the 2 teams, and that went the South Americans' way. But then the second half of Portugal-Ghana restored some faith. Because I'd said to you, I wasn't excited by this group, and I was like, this is why. But now it's got a lot more exciting.
Yeah.
Portugal 3, Ghana 2. What a second half. And I will grudgingly say Portugal were the deserved winners. They dominated the first half against Ghana. That seemed like they'd be happy with a scoreless draw, talking about not going for it again. Ronaldo got a goal, rightfully disallowed in the first half.
I question the penalty call though, because I feel like the
Yes.
Ghanaian defender did get the part of the ball. So that I don't understand why some games have been where the player gets a part of the ball and some they don't. So that's why I just questioned that a little bit. That's the only question about it. But all totally enjoyable second half of that game.
Yeah. It was a Portuguese 1-2 punch
Yeah.
as well, but Ghana got themselves right back into it. And then they couldn't find the equaliser in the end. 9 minutes of time added on. Diogo Costa nearly cost his side when Williams did a little sneak attack when he tried to roll the ball out. And he didn't know that Williams was behind him. He just sneaked in but then fell over. That would have been a fantastic goal. I'd have been happy with that. Portugal had taken the lead from that spot, as you say. And although I can't stand Ronaldo, I've got to give him a nod for scoring in 5 World Cups. The first player to score in 5 different World Cups.
First man.
First man. It is one hell of an achievement.
For sure.
I still can't stand him. So the second lot of matches, another barn burner today. Ghana 3, Korea 2. I was expecting to fast forward through a lot of the games today, but then they were so good I couldn't.
Yeah, though this was like it had a crazy finale too. With a coach being sent off.
Yes. 1-0 for Ghana against a run of play in the 24th minute after a nice little bit of trickery on the free kick where they kind of faked going one way, then Jordan Ayew went the other. There was a check, a very long check for handball that would have been harsh because the guy knew very little about it. But Salisu's goal stood. 10 minutes later, it was 2-0, Akuda's header. One of the deliveries of the tournament in from Jordan Ayew onto that. And you thought, there we go. Ghana's in dreamland. Korea, quite disappointing for me in this whole tournament, but especially in this game. And then from nowhere, 2 goals in 3 minutes from Gusung Cho in the 58th, and then 3 minutes later, both headers, drew them level. Ghana then fought back to retake the lead through Kudus again in the 68th minute after a very fortunate mishit from Williams that if he just squaffed the ball and it ran through to Kudus to score. And then
it was
Ghana,
just he'll probably say I was playing a dummy to the other player, but clearly it wasn't.
Yeah. Ghana did a great job defending that 11 minutes of stoppage time, but that wasn't enough minutes of stoppage time for the Korean head coach Paulo Bento, who wanted more after Korea got a corner and then the English referee blew and wouldn't let them take it.
But the thing is, I don't understand is that it's up to the coach referee's discretion when he blows the whistle. He doesn't have to give that final corner if he doesn't. It feels like maybe he was supposed to call the whistle even earlier than that, and he didn't. But that's and the Korean players and the coach just went off on him.
Yeah,
like the Korean players showed a little bit of respect, but I think it's a Portuguese manager that they have, Bento.
Yeah,
and he just went off on him, and I think there was some kind of contact, and that's why he got the red card because he was poking at his chest. And I don't know if he made contact or not.
I would say, though, is in stoppage time, there was a Ghanaian player went down. And on the PVR, I put it forward 3 times. So that's 3 times 30 seconds because he was down getting treatment. But he only added on a minute instead of 90. So you could argue it was another 30, but it is referee's discretion.
It's referee's discretion. And I've seen it where if something happens in injury time where it's like maybe they add 2/3 of that stoppage time to it. They don't have to add every single second to it.
Yeah.
So I've seen that before. I don't know with the new rules about adding every single second that it is, but again, referee's discretion. He didn't blow it early. He definitely didn't blow it in the 89th minute. So like some referees, like we mentioned last show, do. But he definitely did it too early for the South Korean manager.
Then the last game of the day and the last game of the second round of group matches, Uruguay 0, Portugal 2. A brace from Bruno Fernandes. Well-deserved win for Portugal. They're through now with 6 points.
I couldn't stand the second goal, though. It was that penalty where he does the hop, skip, and
stand there for those.
I fucking hate those at all.
Yeah.
And the funniest thing about that goal, in the when they show the replay of the fans after the goal, they showed the Uruguayan ones, and they were like actually flipping the bird off at people or something.
They were losing it big time.
They got that right on camera during slow motion.
I loved that. Do you know, though, who the Uruguayan fans should be pissed off at? Their own fucking team.
Yeah, I think
Because
so.
there's 3 teams yet to score this World Cup, and they're one of them.
Yeah.
Mexico's
100%.
another, and Tunisia's the other one. But it's like Uruguay have been woeful. Absolutely woeful.
Like the thing is, their scores are like, we talked about it before. I think I mentioned in the pregame, like when we did a preview. They're a very old side, like that, especially their attackers. Like you got Cavani and you got Suarez. There might be still quality with their club side, but club side and international play is different. Like you got two 35-year-olds, and that's who you're expecting to get most of your goals. Like if you take those two out of your lineup, the other players combined for 7 goals in international play in their goal scoring.
You're starting to sound like Kevin De Bruyne.
Yeah, well, but they're 35. You got to bring in some young guys and put them in a position to score goals. You can't rely on the start. Like, I can't believe that. Like, I don't know if Suarez started the first game, but Cavani started this game, and I don't see how you put him in that lineup. You needed to get more players to running up and down the pitch.
For anyone that doesn't know what we're saying about De Bruyne, he's basically said that Belgium's not going to win anything because the team's too old.
And he he basically predicted correctly because they lost, like I said, before we lost to Morocco.
But in Group H, Portugal's now through, and this is a tasty one as well. So Portugal are going to be playing South Korea, and you've got to think it's all over for South Korea because Ghana,
but they
Uruguay,
could be resting again.
Yeah, they could.
Like, I don't see why they would.
Difference and...
Yeah, I don't see why you would put Ronaldo in that game against in that third game. What's the point of starting him or anything like that? Unless you're going to start him for the sake of having another game. But I would not
say
put him...
Portugal lost by 2, and then Ghana won by 2. Then all of a sudden Portugal's second in the group.
Yeah, that's true. You got a point there, but still, I would be careful about Portugal start because you're gonna the games after this round, they come in really fast. I don't essentially. I think December 6th is when these guys would play, or 5th or 6th. And if you look at it, they're playing on December 2nd. That's only a 3-4 day turnaround. So while yes, you might be finishing second, might not be the greatest thing. And if you finish second, you might play Brazil in the first round. But you also got to realize that maybe you put a little bit of more faith in your younger players and rest your Ronaldo for that first game.
I think they probably will. Because what they don't want is him either getting kicked off the pitch or him getting a stupid red card.
Yeah.
Or a yellow that could then cost him later on as well. But we've got the big grudge match. You had said this is what you were looking forward to in this group before it was standing for so much. Ghana, Uruguay, and the way that Ghana have played in their 2 games and the way that Uruguay's played, you've got to think Ghana's big favourites now. And I hope I hope they absolutely fuck them over.
I believe they're the team I had for going through at the beginning too. So I'm hoping they prove me right. And because I had Ghana, I didn't have very much faith in Uruguay at all.
Whilst I love the fact that Uruguay hosted the first World Cup, and I think they should host the 2030 World Cup. It's the 100th year anniversary. And Montevideo looks an absolutely beautiful city with the mist covering it. And I read a nice book about the first World Cup from a guy whose dad lived and worked there. I've always hated Uruguay since the 1986 World Cup when they kicked Scotland off the park. And I think they got a man sent off in the first minute, if I remember right. It was 56 seconds or something. They got a guy sent off. And Scotland couldn't capitalise because they just kept getting kicked off the park. So I've hated them since then. So I really, really hope Ghana do this.
But again, you're talking about not the people of Uruguay or this country or anything. You're talking about the team on the pitch. The actual team.
Yes.
So, yeah. Again, just to reiterate what you talked about England before.
I don't have a Uruguay wavelength song that I can play. I'll see if I can dig one of those out. But that is it for our World Cup roundup. That is pretty much it for this show this week. Just before we go, Steve, any final thoughts? Anything else that caught your eye that we haven't talked about?
Nothing really, but I just just reiterate the comment from earlier. You fuck with a bear, and poke a fucking sleeping bear, you're going to get killed by that bear.
Yes, and Canada did. Give Steve a follow on Whitecaps Beat on Twitter. Give me a follow at AFTN Canada on Twitter. And like, subscribe, turn on notifications, etc. on youtube.com/AFTN Canada and AFTN.ca for all our written stuff as well. I mean, how much football is too much football, Steve? Are you footballed out already, or are you ready for more?
No, not really, because I have to watch the games while I'm working, so I'm not like just sitting there and watching. It's nice to be in the background. I'm able to follow the game and catch the goals and everything like that. So I don't feel like it's been too much. If I was like had the time off and was watching every game and not sleeping, then maybe it might be too much for me.
I've been struggling to fit everything in because obviously there's the 4 games a day. And I'm not getting up early for them, so I'm PVRing them. And this week I've managed to avoid spoilers, so I've done well with that. Yeah. But it's also been the FA Cup and the Scottish Cup this weekend. The Scottish Cup, apart from a game today that I've still got to catch up with, hasn't been televised, but the FA Cup was. So I've been watching tons of that at night once Caitlin's gone to bed. I was at a VMSL game on Friday night. Check the highlights up on YouTube, which you actually should. Coquitlam Mitreford against BB5 United, league leaders against defending champions, 6 goals, an absolute worldie, and a way more enjoyable game of football than some of the ones at the World Cup, so check that one out. But I'm starting to get footballed out a little bit. Once we get down to the knockout stages, it's going to reinvigorate me, I hope. But that is it for the show. We're not going to be back with a show after Canada's last game. Made the call on that just because it's not counting for anything, and we've obviously done a couple of really long shows off late. Might do an extra podcast for our extra subscribers post-game for that. We'll see how that goes. But we will be back soon with another episode of the AFTN Soccer Show. Until then, thanks for listening. Take care. Enjoy the World Cup. And still, despite what TSN say, Allez la Rouge!
Going to your first match is an experience you never forget. The atmosphere of what's going on around the pitch looks beautiful, and you always look and go, wow, I'd love to play here one day. If you get the bug, it's going to stay with you for life.
AFTN.